Alright guys, in today's video, I'm going to be showing you the best value knives for every knife type. I'm going to be going over the best finishes, the best wear rating, the most competitive prices, and overall just the best value for your knife. All of the pricing in this video comes from the Buff163 website, and all of the visuals of the knives are courtesy of the OniPixel Inspect server. I hope you guys find a knife that you like for yourself, and without any further ado, I hope you enjoy the video. Alright, for the first knife we have for you guys, it is a Scorched Navaja at a $70 price point. If you like Navajas, this is a great clean knife for you, and overall the minimal wear condition is $60 cheaper than the factory new, basically half the price, and is pretty similar, almost not different at all in look. Yeah, it matches the terrorist side gloves pretty well here too. It's a great budget knife, great starting knife, and it's pretty clean as well. So, all right, up next for you guys, we have the gut knife lore. If you like gut knives, this is a super clean factory new finish. The gut knife is great with the lore, it has a lot of surface area. The pattern looks really great. I personally don't like gut knives, but the lore just looks absolutely amazing on the gut knife, to be honest. And this is quite a bit more expensive than our last knife with a price of $245. But I think that if you're a fan of the gut knife, this is a steal and is definitely worth the $245. Alright, next up we have the Shadow Daggers Black Laminate. They're at a price point of $80. Pretty cheap, pretty great starting knife. This is at the Battle Scar wear rating, and to be honest with you personally, I could not tell the difference between Battle Scarred and factory new. This knife is pretty much the same at all wear ratings. It's super clean. It goes also pretty well with the default gloves. It's just overall really clean for its price point, and is definitely a sleeper pick for the Shadow Daggers. Alright, the next knife is the Falchion Crimson Web at minimal wear. This is going to be a decently steep price point at $250. But Crimson Web, as you can see, this pattern here actually has some webs on it, which is really good for a Crimson Web pattern. And also, the Falchion knife is really nice because it shows the pattern on the blade, but also the handle, making it a great pattern for the Crimson Web. And also, the factory new version of this knife sits at a $950 price point, which is absolutely outrageous. And this knife at minimal wear, you can see the scratches right there at the tip of the blade, but in my opinion looks almost as good, if not as good, as the factory new. So getting it for $750 cheaper almost is gonna be a great fucking steal for you guys. Alright, here we have the Paracord Stain at Field Tested. It sits at a $130 price point, which is super cheap for this knife. This combination of the wrapped handle that comes with every Paracord knife and the stained finish just makes it look super cool, like straight from a battlefield. This price point for this knife is honestly such a steal, and in my opinion this is a complete sleeper. This is a great knife for any of you to pick up, and is a must-have at such a cheap price. Alright, the next knife I have for you guys is the Survival Knife with the case hardened finish and a factory new wear rating. It's at a price point of $330, but it's honestly great value. The Survival Knife has a lot of surface area for the case hardened finish, and it's a pretty decently cheap price for the case hardened finish in general. The case hardened finish also just has a ton of personality to it. Each pattern is significantly different from the last, and if you go on any marketplace like Buff or one of the other popular ones, you can find tons of patterns on there and just choose one that you personally like. I will say this though, if you are going to buy this knife, I would stay away from almost every wear rating except for factory new, because in CS2, at least in my opinion, factory new is the only good finish on wear rating on case hardened anymore, and I think, to be honest, all the others are really bad. Alright, the next knife I have for you guys is the Huntsman in Marble Fade with a factory new finish. It comes in at a $360 price point. The Huntsman knife just has a ton of surface area, and I think it looks great with a finish like the Marble Fade. $360 is decently steep, but for a finish this vibrant on a knife this big, I think that it's a steal and it's great value. I mean, the Marble Fade just looks great on the Huntsman, and for this price tag, I think it's 100% worth it. Alright, the next knife I have for you guys is the Ursus Ultraviolet, coming in with a field-tested finish at a price tag of $150. Overall, the Ursus is a super clean and sleek blade, and with this super clean and sleek finish, it's a great knife. For $155, it's a complete steal. The clean combination of the finish and the blade, it's just overall just a great knife. Ultraviolet looks great on the Ursus, and this finish is field tested, but overall the blade condition looks like factory new. It's honestly such a steal, and the price tag for a field tested finish is amazing. Alright, the next knife I have for you guys is the Classic Fade, coming in with a price tag of $670 at the field tested finish. The Classic knife is a super underrated knife with a super clean pull-out animation, and something about the fade on the Classic just looks so good. It's just so clean. Like, you just, like, the combination of the Classic and fade is just, I mean, it's classic to me, honestly, like, no pun intended. It's just a classic combination. And with a price tag of $670 for a fade knife, that's honestly pretty decent, all things considered. And I think just, once again, the combination between the two is just insane. Alright, next for you guys, I have the Stiletto Vanilla with a price tag of $435. There is no wear rating on vanilla knives, making them all super clean. And honestly, some people like vibrant patterns on the Stiletto, and a lot of people's main point in hating on the Stiletto is the fact that the blade is super thin and you can't see the patterns. But I feel like the vanilla pattern goes great on the Stiletto. It makes you feel like an Italian mobster. It just has this like lethal kind of look to it. It goes really well with a lot of gloves, and even the default gloves here, it looks really nice. I think this is a super sleeper pick, and it's a great knife under $500. Alright, the next knife I have for you guys is the Flip Knife Doppler at a Phase 4 factory new finish. It comes in at a price tag of $520. The flip knife has a perfect pull-out animation for the Doppler. It has a super flashy pull-out animation. It kind of draws your attention to the blade. And with a kind of pseudo Saphire Phase 4 finish like this, overall, just that blade looks really nice, and the flip knife just combos with it perfectly, in my opinion. Alright, I know what you're going to say. Safari Mesh? Really? But coming with a factory new finish at a price point of $200, $200 is cheap as far as Nomads are considered, and I think that this is a great budget knife. If you're going for that kind of commando, like cutting through blades of grass in the jungle, kind of essentially safari kind of aesthetic, I think this is a great knife for you. It's a great budget knife. I honestly like how the Safari Mesh covers the whole blade of the Nomad, and I think that the Nomad goes great with the Safari Mesh. Alright, up next for you guys, I have our first heavy hitter of this knife list. Coming in at $1,365, the Bowie Saphire with a factory new finish is at first glance a very, very expensive knife. But when you compare it to the 5-figure Sapphires for the higher end knives, this knife is the best value you'll get for a Sapphire. I mean, just look at the blade. The Bowie has the biggest blade of any knife. It's completely sapphired out. For a cheap price tag, this value is just, you can't get better than this. And although it's steep, and obviously a lot of you can afford this, if you're looking for a Sapphire, this is your go-to. For $1,300, comparing this to like a Butterfly or even like an M9 with a similar sized blade, you're getting this for way cheaper, maybe 10 times cheaper. This is just an absolute steal, and this is a must-have for any of you with a higher budget, especially if you like Sapphires. Alright, up next for you guys, I have an absolutely amazing combo. the Talon Tiger Tooth with the factory new finish at a price point of $655. This knife, I mean, it just speaks for itself. Just take a good look at this inspect. I mean, the Talon itself already looks like the claw or fang of like some feline predator, and the tiger print, I mean, the combination is just amazing. And at a $655 price point for a higher end finish and a decently higher end knife, I feel like this is great value, and there's a lot of orange gloves and other kits that it can match with really well. I think this is a great knife, and honestly, anyone who can afford it should definitely look into purchasing it. I know I've been saying this about every knife, but I have another great knife for you guys. The Bayonet Gamma Doppler Phase 2, the factory new finish, comes in at a price tag of $1,030, and it is a steep knife. But I mean, just look at it. It's like a pseudo emerald. It's a little bit of a lighter color, more like closer to like a cyan. But I mean, the color is pretty solid on it. It just looks great. And for a price tag of only $1,000, I know only $1,000 sounds crazy, but comparing it to the higher end, like, I mean, a Bayonet Emerald is around like, I think $6,000. I mean, don't quote me on that, but just, this is close to the quality of an Emerald, and for a price tag of $1,030, I think this is a great deal for you guys. And if you can afford it, definitely look into purchasing one of these. Alright, the next knife I have for you guys is the Skeleton Knife Urban Masked at a factory new wear rating with a price tag of $590. I want to preface this by saying I'm not that big of a fan of the Skeleton Knife, but I personally really like this knife. Although the handle doesn't do much to benefit the knife's look, in my opinion, because the Urban Masked finish does cover the entire knife, I feel like when you're holding this knife and when you're using it, it looks very much like a kunai or like a ninja dagger, like the Skeleton Knife kind of is modeled after. But I feel like the Urban Masked finish especially kind of enhances that look and aesthetic, and if you're going for that, this is a super cheap knife for the Skeleton Knife, in my opinion, and I think this is a great purchase for anyone who's into that kind of ninja kunai kind of aesthetic. Factory new Karambit Black Laminate, coming in at a price tag of $1,140. This is another sleeper pick on my list. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Talon right now. Even though I'm showing you the Karambit, just bear with me. The Talon has a different colored handle than a lot of knives. It has a very nicely colored handle, and that's one of the things I really like about the Talon. Here we have a different colored handle with the black laminate, and I think it accentuates the black blade of this Karambit amazingly. I think that this Karambit looks amazing with a lot of loadouts. It even looks good right here with the default terrorist gloves. I mean, you can combine this with almost anything, and I think this is a super sleeper pick, and if you have the funds to pick this up, you definitely should. Coming in at a $995 price point, we have the M9 Bayonet Slaughter with a factory new wear rating. This knife is super underrated. I do not see this knife getting enough love. The Slaughter finish is a very desirable finish, and the M9 Bayonet is a top 3 most popular knife in CS. Coming in at a $995 price point, it is decently steep, but all things considered, for an M9 Bayonet, that isn't really that expensive. And I think that this is a super underrated combination. I mean, the Slaughter patterns on the high surface area of the Bayonet, are you kidding me? I mean, this is an absolutely sleeper pick, and if you have the money to afford this, I absolutely would pick it up. And finally, the crown jewel of CSGO knives, the Butterfly Knife. With a Doppler Phase 2 finish at factory new, it has a price point of $3,320. This is obviously a very steep knife, but you're really not going to get any non-steep knives with the Butterfly Knife. It is a very expensive knife. It's the most desirable knife in CSGO. And here, Phase 2 of the Doppler finish looks absolutely amazing on it. The Phase 2 finish is commonly considered in the CS2 community to be the new pink gem It's not really the same equivalent as like a ruby or sapphire and emerald, but it does look very clean. I mean, here you can just see it's almost entirely pink. It looks absolutely amazing. It is the most desirable phase out of the Doppler phases for a reason, and I think that it's a great budget choice if you're into that gem finish, kind of like the emerald, sapphire, ruby. And if you're gonna pick up a butterfly knife, you might as well just pimp it out, baby. And this is a great knife to do that. It's great value, and if you have the money to do so, definitely pick this baby